Dear comrades, I am extremely happy that the All India Forum Against Privatization is taking a leading role in organizing such seminars and workshops against corporatization and privatization. I congratulate the leadership of the All India Forum Against Privatization, and I am confident that such type of workshops, interactive sessions, discussions and seminars will go a long way against the struggle of the Indian working class and their trade unions to save the government sector and the public sector. Now here, since I represent the defense industry owned by Government of India and the 4 lakh defense civilian employees as General Secretary of All India Defense Employees Federation, and of course as a National Secretary of AIDEF and Deputy General Secretary of World Federation of Trade Unions, I am here to share my experience of what is happening in the defense industry after the so-called corporatization. All of you are aware the Indian ordnance factories are the oldest industrial setup in our country. Basically, the Britishers installed these factories because to fight war within the country against the Indian kings, and also for its requirement of First World War and Second World War. It has to bring arms, ammunition and weapons from Britain through ships, and it takes 2 months, 3 months for them to bring these defense equipments, and sometimes the ship sinks in the deep sea. So with all these experience, the Britishers thought that in India itself we should develop defense manufacturing industries, defense equipment manufacturing industries. And that is how in Calcutta, Kasipur, the first ordnance factory, namely the gun and shell factory Kasipur, was established in the year 1802. Afterwards, many ordnance factories were established, and in 1947, when Britishers left the country, there were 17 ordnance factories in different parts of the country manufacturing different types of defense equipments. After independence, the country felt the need of self-reliance and indigenization in defense. And with the bitter experience with our neighbors, great national leaders, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister, the defense ministers in his cabinet, V.K. Krishnamenon, and subsequently Indira Gandhi, Y.B. Chavan, Babu Jagjeevan Ram, and all these national leaders in their wisdom thought that defense industry should be expanded, and in due course of time the country should be able to produce all its defense requirements without depending on any foreign countries. And that is how 17 ordnance factories have become 41 ordnance factories. And then during the early 1960s, Krishnamenon in his wisdom thought that we should have our own defense research and development organization, because for manufacturing any equipment, technology is the basic requirement. And India, being just got independence from the Britishers, were far behind in technology, in latest and advanced technologies. So therefore, the Defense Research and Development Organization was established, and new laboratories in different parts of the country with different assignments and different responsibilities were developed. So on the one side, DRDO started state-of-the-art technology and transferring these technologies to the Indian ordnance factories and to the defense public sector, and the ordnance factories, public sector and the DRDO put together have started indigenously developing whatever is required for our armed forces for protecting our country. Unfortunately, the successive governments instead of strengthening and expanding our government-owned defense industry, has taken a position on the backdrop of the liberalization, privatization and globalization policies decided by the then Narasimha Rao government, started implementing privatization in defense production also. Initially, they started with 24% FDI, then 49% FDI, then 54% FDI, then 76% FDI, and now it is 100% foreign direct investment is permitted in defense industry. Similarly, outright licenses are being issued to at least more than 400 private industries to establish defense manufacturing units in our country. And these two decisions have become a major challenge for the Indian ordnance factories and the defense public sector undertakings. And slowly the government has started diluting the functioning of the ordnance factories, the functioning of the DPSUs, the functioning of the DRDO, and government has openly declared that it will encourage more and more private participation in defense research and development and also in defense production. And so much so, in the last budget, all of you know, in the budget, the government has taken a decision that 25% of the DRDO budget will be utilized for the benefit of private industry, and the private industry can fully utilize the facilities available in the DRDO laboratories. So the DRDO is also under severe attack. And then coming to the Indian ordnance factories, before corporatization, the first attack was to declare more than 260 products being manufactured in the ordnance factories as non-core items. And government took a policy decision that on the so-called non-core items, the Army, Navy and Air Force will not place any direct indent to the 41 ordnance factories, which is generally called as on nomination basis. Instead, the government took a decision that for all these so-called 260 non-core items, the customer, the Army, Navy and Air Force will float an open tender, and the ordnance factories should participate in this tender. And if they come as the lowest quoted, that is what they call as L1, then the ordnance factory will get that order. Otherwise, it will go to the private industry, whoever is coming as the L1 in the tender process. Knowingly, government knows that it is very difficult for any public sector or any government sector with its infrastructure, with its welfare-oriented schemes and with its overheads, etc. It will be never able to compete with the private sector and get the work. So that means what will happen? The ordnance factories which are producing these type of equipments, the so-called non-core items, which is not at all non-core. Even today, the government is not able to define what is a non-core and what is a core. The simple answer is whatever private industry can produce, that is non-core. So this is what the government replied. So the first attack was started in the name of non-core. That was in 2017 and 18. And thereafter, they started discussing about the agenda of corporatizing the ordnance factories. Even though during the past 20 years, many high-level committees like TK Nair Committee, Kelkar Committee, Jaffa Committee, and so many other committees have recommended corporatizing the ordnance factories. But then the then government, the then ministers like George Fernandez, Pranab Mukherjee, Jaswant Singh, A.K. Antony, even Mr. Manohar Parrikar, late Manohar Parrikar, who was a minister in the Narendra Modi government, the first Narendra Modi government, all of them have taken a position that corporatizing the ordnance factories is against the national security. Ordnance factories are war reserve. It has to be preserved and maintained. At any cost, it cannot be corporatized. And they have given written assurances to the federations that at any cost, ordnance factories will not be corporatized. But throwing away all those agreements, written agreements and commitments in the dustbin, the Modi government, as taking advantage of the COVID-19 situation, has splintered the ordnance factories into 7 non-viable corporations. When we opposed, when we gave a notice for indefinite strike, the government introduced an ordinance, the Essential Defence Service Ordinance, thereafter passing it in the parliament without any discussion and making it as an act, ETSA 21, which we have challenged in the Delhi High Court, and now it is after 1 year the government has come and told the court we are not extending this ETSA. But taking advantage of the COVID-19 situation and terrorizing the workers in the name of ETSA, the government has conveniently implemented the corporatization, which the trade unions were vehemently opposing. But now, what is the experience of 15 months after corporatization? Corporatization is a total failure. The purpose for which the government told more accountability, more profit earning, they can grab orders, everything has become futile. Even the assurance given by the Honorable Defence Minister that there will be hand-holding by the government by providing sufficient load, there will be financial and non-financial support from the part of the government, all have become a commitment only in the paper. The government has taken a very clear decision that they will not handhold the ordnance factories and they will not extend any supports. I can quote examples here. The Army and Air Force, Navy has gone on open tender for various items which the ordnance factories were producing, including the most sensitive man-traveling parachutes. All these are very sensitive equipments. Strategic battlefield dress, extreme winter climate clothing. All these items now they have floated tenders, and so much so they have imposed that type of restrictive conditions. Even in the tender, the ordnance factories cannot participate. So this is the experience. And that is why the trade unions are opposing corporatization, because corporatization is the first step towards privatization. Now out of 41 ordnance factories, 20 factories are not having any workload for the next financial year. What will happen to them? There is no assurance, no guarantee from the government. Rather, they are going to the private sector without supporting the ordnance factories. So what will happen? The factories will become sick. And once the factories will become sick, it is easy for the government to close it down. It is easy for the government to sell it. And these 76,000 employees, they are all central government employees. They are all defense civilian employees. What will happen to them after September 23? Because they are on deemed deputation as government employees in these corporations. And that is why we have challenged, the AIDEF has challenged this in the Madras High Court. And the government, since not able to answer many of the issues raised by us against corporatization, their only answer in the court of law is, we are a majority government, we have got power to take any policy decision. Trade unions cannot challenge that, even the court cannot interfere in that. This is the only answer. But when it came to the service condition matter, the government was left with no other option than to give a commitment that unless and until the employees themselves opt to join the corporation, they will remain as government employees. It was a commitment given before the court. But where is the notification? We are asking you, issue a notification. There is a notification in the case of All India Radio and Doordarshan, when both were merged and made Prasar Bharati. To protect the service of the employees, they issued a notification. That was, of course, UPA government. But this government, only commitments and commitments, but all commitments are violated. And now the ordnance factories and the employees are struggling for their survival. for their future. And this is the experience what we have learned from BSNL. When telecom was made into BSNL, there was no competitors. But after converting it into BSNL, without providing any support, without providing any technological support, any strategical support, any financial support, allowed private industries, allowed to give all technologies to them. And today, what is the fate of BSNL? And it is a BSNL who really served the nation. It is the BSNL which connects every nook and corner for the communication. It is the BSNL which helped the country during the COVID-19 pandemic. But it is ignored. The railways are ignored. Each and every activity of the railways, the train is privatized, railway stations are privatized, defense production units, railway production units are going to be corporatized. So therefore, it is apt that this seminar is discussing about the experience after corporatization and privatization. Therefore, I am restricting only myself to my experience as a representative of the Defence Trade Union, what is happening after corporatizing the ordnance factories. Even compassionate ground appointment has been stopped. They are all government employees. The employees are government employees. If they die in harness and if they come in the merit, they have to be given compassionate appointment. But for the past more than 1.5 years, completely compassionate appointment is stopped. So the attack is against the ordnance factories. The plan, the conspiracy is to make it a sick industry and to make the future of the employees who were recruited as government employees through various selection process. What is there going to be their future? Therefore, the issues are serious. And it is not the struggle of the defense employees or the railway employees or the BSNL employees or the employees of banks, insurance, electricity, public transport. No. This struggle cannot be restricted as a trade union struggle. It should be converted into a struggle of the people, because these are all national assets. These are all nation's assets created over a period of time by patriotic leaders of this country. How can the people of this country allow these national assets to be dismantled? Therefore, it is essential that we have to go to the public, while we as trade unions mobilizing the employees and fighting against corporatization and privatization, it is also our responsibility to go to the public and inform the public that this is not a trade union struggle alone. This is a struggle to save the nation's property. This is a struggle to save the national asset. Because in any crisis, in any emergency, it is only the government sector and the public sector which has come to the rescue of the country, and none of the private sector has bothered to come for the rescue of the country in crisis and in emergent situations. Therefore, I conclude that the struggle against corporatization and the struggle against privatization should be further intensified, and it should be expanded to involve people of all walk of life, because ultimately the struggle what we are doing is to save the national property, nation's assets, and it is in the interest of the national security of our country. And I am confident that such type of seminars and workshops will continue to create awareness amongst the masses. Thank you very much.